Hey everyone, sorry for the late post. Life happened, got a little busy. Here we are though. I do just want to say stay tuned in for the next couple weeks. They should be a few big episodes. Thanks for joining. I hope you had a safe flight in and hit no turbulence. It's good to see all of you flyers, riders, and riders again. With that being said, let's get into the show. Chapter 7, Bonington's Treasure. Last week we left off with David having an online email conversation with Zanna, and they're going back and forth a little bit about who Laurel was and the connections between their essays with dragons and the Loch Ness Monster. And so we're coming right off the tails of that. David gets off of the computer because he needs time to think. He's a little weirded out. He thinks that there's some connection between the bears and the dragons. He also wants to know why Bergstrom is interested in dragons and why Liz has such a big reaction to him. As David's laying on the bed, he has a couple of thoughts and he starts thinking about the bear that he's dreaming about. And he says, Laurel, if that's you, speak to me. Let me know. And my first thought on that is it's kind of scary, David. I don't know what you guys believe, but if you're any kind of spiritual, to me, if you're speaking directly to the spirits, you're going to be getting some form of reaction. So don't be looking for what you don't want, David. It's scary. It's getting kind of late, and David's trying to fall asleep but having a hard time. It's, he hears something creaking. Bonington kind of opens his door, pads over, and hops on David's chest. Takes him a while to get comfortable. Says that he needs David's stomach, trying to find a comfortable spot for himself. And after about 5 minutes or so, he's finally chilling, sleeping, and that helps David fall asleep too. Which I am the same way. I used to have a little Frenchy bulldog, and before that, I had a couple, but I've always slept with a pet for the longest time. And now that my pet's been gone for about a year, the first couple of months were kind of weird not having something or someone right next to you. Just felt quiet. The next morning, David and Bonington wake up together, and he sees that Bonington is still just staring at the ice patch out back. It's been raining for a couple of days now, and it's nothing more than, maybe a mound of about a foot of snow in the center of the gardens with nothing else. The rain washed it all away. But Bonington is still suspicious, so David picks him up, takes him out to the gardens to have him check it out. And it mentions how muddy it is. As he's stomping around, he gets a couple inches thick of mud just caked around his shoes. Bonington's still suspicious. He inspects the outside ridge of the ice patch and doesn't want to go near it. He starts hissing, and David turns around looking to see what's going on. He doesn't see anything either, but Bonington runs the opposite way into a bramble, and I'm not really sure what a bramble was, so I had to look it up. Stealing a page out of Mike Schubert's book and TNO and Potterless and all of his podcasts that he does. This is Editing Diego coming at you to let you know that a bramble is just blackberries or raspberries, just little bushes. That's now just the author being British. There was another mention of tea time and rain. So just coming off of that episode that I had done with Kaylee, how she mentioned that this was supposed to be in America, and we found out very quickly, it got confirmed that it was Massachusetts. I had completely forgotten. But this author is just writing what he knows. Very British. All right, editing Diego out. All right. David finds Bonington's little stash of trinkets and starts calling him names. The furry feline felon, the robber. He's got an old hairbrush. He's got one of David's pens. He's got a ripped up picture that he probably stole off of the fridge. Some spoons and silverware. David just thinks it's funny, but he picks up the hairbrush and writes spiky on it because when he first reached in and he grabbed it, he thought he poked himself. And at first, when he was pulling out the hairbrush, thought that it could look like a hedgehog. So he wrote Spiky, thinking that he's going to prank Lucy at some point, and then picks Barrington back up and starts heading inside. Before he can get in, though, Liz stops him and tells him, "You better clean those shoes off. You're not walking in my house with that," which is fair, but she hands him a toothbrush. And like that kind of sucks. I'll just whack my shoes a couple times and leave them outside. What, I'll deal with it later. But David starts to try to tell Liz that Boddington's doing all this stuff and stealing, and she's telling David, "Stop! You're we don't need to be blaming my cat. There's nothing going on. The cat didn't drag you out here and make you go out in the mud." Which is true, but I think David should have just told her, "Go check." But with it being so muddy, she probably wouldn't have. Liz isn't the type of gal to just go run amok for no reason. As David gets back inside, he sees a heap of mail on the table. He starts sorting through it. He's got a couple himself. He gets one from the bank, and Liz kind of side eyes him and tells him, "Don't tell me what it says, because you're already behind a week. Maybe even 2 weeks. I don't quite remember." Which sucks, man. I think everybody's been in that position before where, you're a little bit behind on rent, a little bit behind on the other bills, and you just can't seem to catch back up. Rough times happens to everybody. Hope he can get out of it soon. But he's also got another letter from a publisher, and she says the same things that all the other ones had said, that his writings show promise, but it's just not quite the right moment for this type of book. But she said that she's willing to meet him and to call and set up a little coffee meeting where they could informally speak, which is kind of cool. That means, you're probably not going to lead anywhere right away, but at least you get some cool advice, you get someone with experience, and you get direction. At this point, David's just going in on it alone, and everybody needs a mentor. If you want to succeed, you surround yourself with people that are better than yourself. You learn. My little tip. And with that tip, that brings us to the end of the chapter. Chapter 8, The Hunt for Spiky. Lucy is pretty upset for the couple days of rain since it washed away all the snow. She asks Liz if she can make another wish for snow, because the dragons will love it too. Liz says no, because Gwyneth is now kilned. He's fully David's. Nobody can make a wish except for him. Which is kind of cool news. My first thought was, man, I wonder what his first wish is going to be, since it has to be beneficial. What could David wish for that would benefit all dragons? We'll have to see what happens. In this section, we actually get it, so can't spoil it. But as Liz is telling Lucy that Gwyneth is killed, they're going back and forth, and David says that he thinks the mound looked like a bear, and he decided to name the bear Laurel, trying to test to see if Liz has another big reaction. Liz doesn't. She just goes about her day, washing and drying tables again. And David's just trying to get it out of her, asking questions. Are the bears connected? How old are they? What do the bears do? But Liz doesn't really know. She says that dragons lived a long time ago and the two dynasties never crossed. And the word choicing to me is interesting. Why are we calling them dynasties? Dragons didn't really necessarily rule the world, or at least as far as I'm aware. They can be extremely intelligent beings, but I've never seen a dragon rule as a monarch, per se. Unless it's within their own species. Like obviously there could be an alpha dragon or something, but they've never been a monarch of other species than themselves. At least not that I've seen. Let me know if there's a series that you've read that's like that. Give it to me in the comments. It is Sunday, the day that Zanna's supposed to be coming over, And David's getting pretty nervous because they're cutting it close. The two penny kettle girls were packing things up. And when it hit about 11, David had told Lucy that he might have found a hedgehog and sent her looking into the bramble real quick. Lucy's gone for a long time while Liz is finishing up, and she's trying to start the car. It's not going. Starts revving up a little bit. Nothing. She pops the hood and asks David to at least take a look at it to try. And you can see that David knows absolutely nothing. He says, it's on something to do with the gigawatts, and sounds like Professor Brown talking Back to the Future. But in this time of need, Mr. Bacon happens to pop his head out over. And problem, Mrs. B? He walks around the fence. It takes one look, does a little adjusting, has Liz try. Didn't start the first time, but as he tried again, tightened one little bolt here, it fired right up. And Henry just kind of goes, it's no problem at all, Miss P. Just needs a tune-up. I'd be more than happy to help out whenever it's easy for you. And it's something that he learned in the military when he was a mechanic. So there's a little bit more information on Mr. Bacon. Maybe that's why he's such an angry man. We don't know what he saw or what he did in the military. We just know that he was there. And now he's a librarian. He just wants a nice, quiet life. So to me, whenever you have somebody with a little bit more of a secretive past and now they're boring, it means there's something that happened. And I want to know what. As Liz is getting ready to leave, she calls for Lucy. Lucy comes running up saying that she found Spiky. David is confused because he didn't see a hedgehog whatsoever when he was out there. He was just trying to play a prank on Lucy by riding, Spiky on the brush. Lucy's bounding up and down and exclaiming that it's all white with pink little eyes. So that's kind of cool. We get to hear that he's albino. This is actually the second time I'm reading a series that has an albino character that is coming up. Interesting. They're both little mythical creatures. Well, I wouldn't call them mythical creatures, but creatures that you wouldn't expect to be in them. I read the Red Pyramid series by Rick Roydren, or Roydren, however you want to say it, Rick Roydan. But I read those way back when, probably right after reading these books, I'd say. And I remember there being an albino crocodile in one of those books. Or maybe both of the books? All three of the books? I don't remember. It's been a long time. But I know there was an albino crocodile. Now we get an albino hedgehog. Be kind of cool. I'd like to see it. I've never seen a real albino anything. But we know that happens. I've seen the opposite. I forget what it's called, but there's another condition where animals can get all black pigment, and then their coats are just crazy, crazy dark. You should look it up. And that brings us to the end of that chapter. On to chapter 9, Zanna in the Garden. And my first thought was the song by Linkin Park. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's the one where he's like, he tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. Just because, dude, I thought that Liz wasn't going to take off in time, and Zanna's going to pull up, and David's going to get caught red-handed. So, nothing crazy, but that was my first thought. Alright, so Liz kind of shuffles Lucy into the car. They start taking off. And right before Mr. Bacon starts heading back home, it's literally the nick of time. They had to have passed each other on the street. Liz probably just didn't know. But Zanna pulls up. And Mr. Bacon's sitting there talking about, boy, that's a good car. If you want to be in something reliable, you got to be in something like that. And in pulls Zanna. They didn't say what kind of a car. It just said that it was a black, sleek looking. So I'm guessing, it might be something on the higher end. Maybe like a nice Mercedes or a BMW, just all black. Even, nice to me. I even like little Acuras. I think Acuras look nice. But something sturdy. But David is just surprised that Zanna has something like this. Mr. Bacon waits a second, watches Zanna pull out, and says, "What are you doing here?" Surprisingly, they know each other. Mr. Bacon is asking questions like, "What are you doing wasting your time with this guy? And you're here to see him? Are you sure?" Which means that, there's something going on with Zanna. She's got to be either around the library all the time or just super smart. It made me wonder how they knew each other. Zanna's joking around and says, "Yeah, she's here for David," and gives him a kiss on the cheek, which is, dang, man, that's moving fast and that's bold. For a first time hangout and coming over before you even really have a conversation. Granted, we don't know what they've been like when they've been at school. They've obviously had to interact with each other back then, but I'm not sure if it was ever romantic. You can tell by the later chapters and how David kind of explains being around her that this is all new for him. And I'm not sure what's going on with the whole Sophie thing. I know she's in Africa, but they didn't straight up say that they're separated. Oh, I don't know what's going on there. David invites Anna in, says, "Hey, do you want to come inside? Maybe a cup of tea? We can talk." He's a little awkward and shuffling her through as Mr. Bacon's leaving. And Xana just kind of jokes around, laughing at him, saying, "That's your first mistake, Rain. You don't invite a vampire into your house." And that's funny because I don't know why, but right now this is going to be a pop culture reference, so I don't know if it's going to date this podcast in the future. But there's a huge trend going on, or maybe it's a show, but it's very popular clips on YouTube, TikTok, all of them just showing the don't invite vampires into your house. I'll have to do some more research. It kind of looks like it's from a show. I'm not too into it. I'm not plugged in. All of my time goes to work. As they're walking through the house, Xana can just feel the energy. She says that the aura is crazy around here, the walls are lively, and that it almost feels like it has some kind of rhythm to it. David's asking a question, just wondering about the car. He's like, "Is that yours?" And she kind of brushes it off, flicks the hand, and goes, "Yeah, I got a rich daddy. He's a dentist, and so, I mean, he's obviously taking care of her good." As they're talking about this, Anna just kind of talks about how she has a sixth sense for things and starts going about the house trying to pick things out. David's showing her his room and she's checking out Gadzooks. She's really intrigued. She asks a couple questions as she's spinning him around. What does he do? Wait, does he have a pen and pencil? And so David kind of takes a second, not sure how he wants to answer this, but ends up just telling her that he's kind of his inspiration dragon. Whenever he needs help with something, he just imagines him, and Gadzooks will start writing something down on his pen. But he also tells her about when he envisioned Gadzooks when he was talking to Bergstrom, how Gadzooks started stamping his feet and blowing smoke rings like he was getting excited. David said that had never happened before. So Xana is starting to put things together two and two, and she's like, "David, you got to start believing this stuff because there's something going on. This house has a heartbeat life in it, and the dragon's here to see you, or not the dragon, and the bear is here to see you for something." She says that you've been singled out for some reason, and you're not believing it. David tells her that he's kind of not wanting to hear too much going on right now, and he's looking outside and he looks at the snow patch and she goes, "What does that look like to you, Xana?" And Xana's thinking about it and out of nowhere just says the Arctic. And that was a connection that David had made too, not necessarily about that patch, but with bears and dragons. And so Xana's saying that this Arctic is probably the spot that Laurel comes to visit David at because it's just a patch of ice and bears need ice. David is very put off by this, doesn't want to admit it, and he starts talking about the new story that he's writing or might possibly write and how he's tried to prank Lucy. So he goes over to the bramble talking about the albino hedgehog. And Xana takes this second. She goes, "Hey, albino hedgehogs are actually significant. They're assigned to, and it gets cut off. David's like, I don't want to hear any more mythical mumbo jumbo. None of this. No more. And previously in the chapters, we had heard a couple times where David was a little off put by Zanna's looks, whether, it's described as she was wearing 2 rings per finger, her ears were pierced to the gills, she wore an all black, super tight skirt, and I can't remember, I think it was purple eyeshadow, and I'm not sure how her hair was described, I can't remember. But this whole time, David was just feeling overwhelmed. And Zanna had felt it. As soon as David said that, she told him, you know what, David, I don't think this was a good idea. She's hurt because David can tell that there's something strange going on here. But he doesn't want to work with Zanna just because of the way that she looks, and she's a little bit weird. David feels guilty. He takes a second, but he starts running after her, and he goes, Zanna, I'm sorry. I just don't know what's going on, and I don't know how to deal with this. Zanna says that believing is important. You have to believe that the bear wants to talk to you. Believe that the dragons are real. And she actually, on her own, brings up Tinkerbell and Peter Pan. She says, Tinkerbell's only alive because people believe that fairies exist. David's starting to get put off a little bit more by this, but she keeps going. She says, it's the same here. Maybe if you believe that the bear is trying to talk to you and you don't shut off your subconscious mind, then you'd be open and you'd be able to hear. So David thinks about this, kind of gets it in his head that he'll try that the next time that he's sleeping. He immediately starts thinking about his dream with the bear and the tooth, or the tooth-shaped mountain. And he's wondering if the bear is trying to tell him something about that specific location, and he just needs more information. Zanna's heading inside and is telling David how this is somehow connected to those guys, and points up to the dragons in the dragon's den. And David didn't say anything, but he thought, I couldn't agree more. And Zanna does this thing where she takes her hair down. It must have been up, and it's described as David, for the first time, saw her as a beautiful woman and not as a goth. So it's kind of funny. It's, the author's way of doing this. There's that movie trope where the ugly girl takes her glasses off and she was hot the whole time. It's unfortunate. It's tough. But, it is what it is. We're slowly getting that everybody can be beautiful. David just has to get over his own stuff. Don't judge a book by its cover, right? Zanna decides to take up David on his offer for tea and says that it's time to spill the beans, and she wants all the secrets. The secrets of the house, the secrets of the dragons, the secrets of the penny kettles. She wants it all. So that's pretty cool. Zanna's obviously got some abilities. She says that she's got the sixth sense, which seems like it. I want to know if she's going to end up getting a dragon. It seems like everybody who comes in contact and has more than 2 lines of dialogue gets a dragon, and a special dragon at that. So it'll be interesting to see which one she picks. And now we're going to get into the next chapter. Chapter 10, David makes a wish. Zanna was talking about dragon lore and saying that dragons existed to serve Gaia. David didn't know who Gaia was and never really heard about that, so she takes a second to explain the Gaia principle, in that Mother Earth was here before us, will be here after us, and no matter how much poison we put into the world, eventually Mother Earth will heal. And it doesn't mean that we can just treat the Earth however we see it, because we could make the Earth uninhabitable for ourselves. If we don't have enough oxygen, if we don't have enough shelter, if we don't have enough food, we could kill ourselves off. But there have been many mass extinctions. The dinosaurs themselves lived for over 150 million years. There was 3 major extinctions in that time. Since then, there's been countless that we don't even know just because their fossils aren't old enough yet, or we just haven't found them. She says that dragons were made to replenish and help the earth breathe. David remembers this too, and Zanna keeps going on saying that she believes other realities can be accessed by the mind. the more belief, the more alma something has, and the more availability that thing has to you. Zanna knows a little bit about dragon lore. She doesn't know much about, she hasn't heard about Gwen yet, but she wants David to tell her the story. They go back and forth. David tells her the same story that he told Bergstrom, and she comes to the same questions. Who is Guilana, and what did Guinevere do with the fire tear? After the story was over, Zanna gets extremely intrigued and asks to go into the dragon's den. David puts up hard walls. No, 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 not at all. But Zanna's pushy, man. I wouldn't know how to deal with this because she just kind of keeps twisting his arm, pulls him along, and David finally agrees. So as they're heading up the stairs, David's anticipating getting burned, possibly eaten alive by a life-size dragon, getting in trouble in some way. And nothing happened. They walked up, and Gruffin was nowhere to be found. He wasn't on his little guard post. Instead, on the spot where Gruffin usually stood was actually Gwyneth, completely finished. Zanna honed in on him immediately, calling him an exquisite creature, how beautiful he was, and wondering about his huge paws. This must have made David feel a certain way that she was so intrigued because he goes on to say, it's actually my dragon. Yeah, kind of cool, huh? And she asks about the purpose of the paws. David explains that he's a wishing dragon. So you put your thumbs in there, make a wish, and try to make it come true. Zanna does not hesitate whatsoever. She closes her eyes, puts her thumbs on the paws, and says, I wish for a geology student with moppy brown hair to give me a big old smooch. Then she opens up one eye, looks at David, and said, Is it working yet? It's a good flirting technique. It was pretty good. David is absolutely silent. He's not impressed. Doesn't think it was funny, which got kind of rude, man. Like, you're not playing ball at all. Not even being nice to her. I don't know. At this point, Zanna, I would have just left no matter what. David is just sitting there completely silent. And when he breaks it, he just says, Only the owner can make a wish. After he's killed, the maker can make one, but after he's done, only the owner. And it has to be beneficial. Hearing that, Zanna contemplates a little bit and then tells David to make a wish. She says, Wish for the knowledge. Wish to know about Gwaine and what happened to his tear. She says, as he's doing this, to picture Gadzooks. David puts his thumbs on, actually kind of gets a blank mind, and does make his wish that he wants to know about what happened to the fire tear and the rest of the story. When he tries to picture Gadzooks, silence. I mean, Gadzooks shows up, but he doesn't write anything. He doesn't blow any smoke. There's no interaction. He's just staring at David. David noticed that the house is completely silent as well. That normal hurrying that you can feel ruminating through the house is no longer there. Feels very eerie. David suspects that something is going to happen. Something crazy. After David is done making the wish, he sees Zanna going around looking at all the dragons. She likes the baby ones. Some of them are half out of the egg, maybe just crawling out of the egg. It has something to do with the egg. But there's only one full egg that was unhatched, uncracked, anything, and it was bronze colored. Zanna, for some reason, took a liking to this and picked it up as they were continuing to go through. David tells her to be careful. She again reminds him, I'm not going to break anything. Calm down, buddy. But then she gets to Guinevere, and she goes into almost a trance-like state. She's saying that it's her baby. It's her baby. She's not going to give it up. It's her baby. And David's freaked out watching this, not knowing what the heck is going on because Zanna's staring straight at Guinevere, holding this bronze egg close to her breasts, and is just chanting, "It's her baby." David says, "What's going on? Are you okay?" And she says that Guinevere wants the egg. She needs the egg. As Zanna's going into this trance, David touches her and she gets kind of shocked. She drops the egg and the egg rolls over and touches the foot of Guinevere. As soon as that happened, David wasn't sure if it was just the flicker of the light or if something truly happened with the egg. He said that it looks like the egg rippled all over its shell and then went completely smooth again. And that's exciting to me because that means we're going to get. I mean, could this be a natural dragon? If we're getting an egg form, it's obviously got to grow. Is it going to grow to the size of a regular clay dragon? Clay doesn't really usually do that. That's why Liz has to make them. So, is this going to be Zanna's dragon? That's kind of crazy. After the reaction with the egg, there's a loud bang outside. David gets nervous thinking that it's Liz and Lucy, so he starts herding Zanna out the door, telling her things like, "Hey, you've only been here for 2 minutes. Okay, you're just here to drop off a book and now you're leaving." Then he thought about it and he's like, "Oh man, what about the teacups? Okay, 10 minutes. You've been here for 10 minutes and you didn't go into the den whatsoever." Zanna thinks that this is a little out there and weird and unnecessary, but agrees to it. And when they get to the door, they open it, and it's not Liz or Lucy. It's an old woman with white hair, silver white hair, and a dragon that looks like a penny kettle dragon sitting on top of her suitcase. They kind of go back and forth, and David's saying that Liz isn't here. My first question was, is this Liz's mom? What's going on? Who is this lady? And why does she have a dragon? And why did she show up right now? That was a little suspicious. The timing of it is just almost teleportation like. Chapter 11, Aunty Gwyneth calls. Liz and Lucy do show up right at this time, though, and everybody's home. Zanna's there, David's there, Aunty Gwyneth is there. But Lucy doesn't know her. Lucy pops up and says, "Mom, who is that?" in the driveway. I guess obviously she can't see Zanna yet, but Liz doesn't say anything. She's kind of shocked and is walking up in silence. And Lucy is excited. She sees the dragon on her suitcase and she's asking her, "What kind of dragon is she?" Liz tells her, "You need to calm down, Lucy. Now is not the time. Let's get our guest inside." And she's introducing everybody and tells that this is Aunty Gwyneth. Not sure quite what's going on, but to bring her suitcase inside. And David gets a little sus, but brings the suitcase in. Lucy looked at this dragon. The old lady says that its name is Gretel and that she's a potion dragon. Lucy can tell that by the larger scales and the darker green color, this is a much older dragon. There's no way to date it or no way to know how old this Aunty Gwyneth is yet. But I am assuming maybe this is supposed to be, the generation before, maybe even 2 generations before Liz. So that's kind of cool. I would like to see more of the family tree. It's interesting that it's a woman again. It makes me want to know if men can use this power, if it's solely a maternal thing. Things are kind of awkward, and David introduces Liz to Zanna. There's a silent interaction between Zanna and Liz. Zanna says that she loves her dragons, and Liz says that she can tell, and looks straight at David. To me, this meant that Liz knew that she had been in the dragon's den. So that's no bueno, brother. It's going to be a fun little talk. Zanna takes this as her cue to leave, and she hands David over her romantic business card. She tells David to use it. It's got her address and phone number on it. And says, just in case you don't, here's this. And plops a big old smooch on him. But she tells him that she does know one thing. That's not an Aunty or a Gwyneth. And with that drop, I mean, that was my first instinct too. But right here, right now, it's been a long time since I've read these books. And again, I don't remember everything. I don't remember this character. I think this is Gwilana. I think Gwilana is just this immortal being. She's got all the dragon magic and knowledge, and she only shows up in time of importance. Right? Right? Am I right? Right. So it's got to be something with the egg, is what I'm guessing. Did Zanna make it real? How does Zanna have magic if she's not related to these girls in any way? It's interesting. Chapter 12, Flower Power. After David comes back in, he's upset because Lucy's being rude to him, saying that Zanna's a witch and how could you kiss her? You need to tell Sophie. David tells her, hey man, this is my business. You need to butt out of it. You're not a part of this relationship, and that Zanna's just a friend. After this, David walks into the kitchen and he's caught dragon-handed again. Liz found Grace in the box that David had stuffed her in when Zanna was there because he didn't want to feel guilty about the listening dragon probably, reporting back in with Sophie somehow, some way. Liz is upset, and rightfully so. She tells David that she doesn't mind if he has a friend over, but he needs to respect her privacy. He should not have taken Zanna into the dragon's den without her permission, or her there, period. And man, that's huge. Really, David is a tenant, and he's a couple weeks behind. So I'd be walking on eggshells there. At least ask permission, like they don't have to be there, but let them know, hey, I'm going to have a friend over. It's just a respectful thing to do. Whether, I mean, you live in that house or you don't. If you're hanging out with your significant other, it'd just be nice to be like, hey, my buddy's going to come over today so they're not blindsided. Kind of rude. Just period. Not to mention breaking somebody's trust and crossing boundaries that have no reason to be broken. No reason. Liz is completely open and usually shows people as soon as they ask. So you couldn't have waited, 10 more minutes and things would have been fine. But we obviously wouldn't have gotten that whole interaction. So I get it. I get it. I get it. It's for the story. Liz is saying that she needs to find some arrangements for Aunty Gwyneth. David takes this as her kind of kicking him out almost. But Liz says nothing of that. Nothing close to it whatsoever. And so David is just having teenage angst. He goes into his room and he's pacing back and forth. And he's talking about, like, I'm a tenant. I pay. I don't need to deal with this. This is unright. I'm going to write a letter. And this makes me think of white chicks. I'm going to have a BF. What's a BF? Oh my God. She's going to have a fit. Especially the writing of the letter. I am a white woman. Freaking hilarious. If you guys haven't seen that movie, go watch it. Anyway, David starts writing this letter and eventually starts cooling off. He needs to go pee, comes back from the bathroom, and when he does, he sees Gretel sitting right on his keypad. And he thinks that's a little weird, calls out for Lucy and says, this isn't a funny joke. But Lucy doesn't appear. She's nowhere to be found. He sticks his head out and he sees that Liz, Lucy, and Aunty Gwyneth are all just sitting out in the living room watching TV and talking a little bit. So David goes over there and sees that Gretel is holding a bouquet of flowers and remembers that she's a potion dragon. So he's wondering if it's maybe like smelly, and he leans over and he stops to smell the roses. He gets hints of spices and cinnamon, but then starts to feel a little funky. He's getting a little lightheaded, but decides that it's time to move out. So he starts packing his bag, throws his backpack over his shoulder. He walks out into the living room and tells Liz that he's on his way. He's moving out. He's taking the small stuff now, but he'll be back for the big stuff and furniture later. And Liz is confused. She feels like this came out of nowhere and just kind of from the black, which it really did. There's no need to overreact like this big time. And David just walks out of the front door without saying anything else. So Liz comes running up behind him and telling him, David, what are you talking about? Where are you going? You're not kicked out. And David explains to her, well, I found Gretel on my desk, so I figured that meant that that's where Aunty Gwyneth is going to sleep. And Liz just shakes her head and tells David that that's not even on the table. Nobody's going anywhere. But as this is all going down, Liz finally says, oh, David, what am I going to do with you? Just kind of as an offhand joke. But what happens next is David goes completely white, loses all color, and collapses in front of Liz, which is kind of scary, man. I don't know what's going on. I hope he's okay. But before we get anything, and right at the end of the chapter, we just get Mr. Bacon popping out and saying, is there a problem, Miss P? Which leads me to think that Mr. Bacon is going to somehow help this situation. So I don't know if that means that maybe Aunty Gwyneth is going to stay there, or David is going to stay there, or maybe Bacon can help him get back to the house at least after collapsing. I have no clue. But that brings us to the end of the chapter. And, you know, Zanna makes me question things a lot. Why? I remember when I first read these, and I was a little freaked out by Zanna too, but I loved the knowledge that she brought. Might be a little spoilery, but she's here through the rest of the series, and it can't be understated how she's going to influence things going ahead. I don't quite remember where these exact chapters lead to, but I'm excited for you guys to learn too. So I appreciate you joining me. I do have some pretty big news. I don't want to announce it just yet, but for the next 2 episodes, I should have guests on. They will be different guests. The second episode, if all goes well, we'll have 2 guests that are better than me. So stay tuned. I'll get these out on a more consistent basis. I'm sorry for being late, but thank you for joining me. Have a safe flight out and hit no turbulence.